Hi everyone. I usually paint my subjects with just a plain white paper background as I love the way that focuses the eye in on the subject. But with paler subjects like this delicate Phalaenopsis orchid, you often want to add contrast to the background to achieve the same effect of focusing the eye in on the subject. So in this tip video I wanted to show you how I work in layers to paint this textured background. Firstly, I began with an outline drawing of the orchid which I based on a photograph. Although the background contains lots of texture, there was no need to draw any of that texture in because it can all be created with paint. So I began by laying down a watery layer. I used 4 colours: yellow ochre, Payne's grey, burnt sienna, and even some permanent rose added in. I mixed in small batches, and this meant I naturally ended up having differences in the proportions of those colours in my mixes. Far from being a problem though, these differences actually added to the texture effect really well. The brush I used was bigger than the normal brushes I use, so it could hold more paint and therefore cover the area more easily. The first layer looks really messy with overlaps because I've been applying the paint in these small patches. But that's fine because we're going to build up the layers which will naturally smooth out a lot of these overlaps where they currently look too pronounced. I let that layer dry and added the lightest tones to the orchid itself. This involved watery washes, which is why I painted them next before I added more paint to the background. If I'd waited and applied those watery washes to the orchid after I'd darkened the background, it's possible that the background would have bled into them. And once that paint was dry, I applied a second, slightly darker mix of the same colours to the background. I turned my paper around to make it easier to paint, and I changed to using a different style of brush. For these layers I preferred to use a standard synthetic round brush which held a little bit less water than the one I used before. This meant it was easier to make sure that I wasn't depositing too much water on the paper at once and that I could keep better control. With this second layer, you can see the overlaps from the first layer are softened a little, and also more overlaps are added in this layer, giving the overall impression of a more uniform, uneven texture. The layer dried quickly because I wasn't applying much paint to the paper at once. So once I'd finished working my way around, I could begin again on a third layer. The mix was the same consistency as the layer before, which produced a gradual darkening to the sort of depth of colour I was looking for. But crucially, working in layers like this uses the overlaps in paint that you naturally get when applying with this size brush to create a uniform yet soft textured appearance. After 3 layers, the contrast with the white petals looked good, so I then painted the flowers in all their detail. This had the effect of darkening the flowers, so to get the contrast with the background to look exactly how I wanted it, I now added a final layer, being careful when applying the paint around the edges of the flower. I also took this opportunity to change the hue of the mix a little and add in a little bit more of the permanent rose. The ability to correct your colours as you go is another benefit of creating a background using layers. Next time I'll show you how to go about painting the stripes on the petals. The full tutorial of this orchid is available now as part of my online school. If you've enjoyed this tip video, please visit animationart.com where you can sign up for a free step-by-step tutorial, check out the equipment I recommend, view more tip videos, get inspired by my portfolio and lots more. Thanks for watching.